Good day, my fellow YouTubers. My name is Batman, and it is my distinct honor to bring you this in-depth analysis and cross-examination of the perks in Call of Duty Ghosts. If your computer can handle it, I suggest you watch this video in full screen. This image on your screen has been going around on Twitter. It's on all the fan hype sites. It's a convenient little perk list. The stuff in parentheses is not confirmed, but keep in mind if it's just the name of the perk that's got parentheses, then it's just the name of the perk itself that's unconfirmed. If the description of the perk is not in parentheses, then it is the accurate description of what the perk will do, whatever that perk may actually end up being named. So, with that in mind, there are 3 perks that as of now have unconfirmed descriptions, but of the perks that we know of, most of it is pretty straightforward stuff. We've seen most of these in previous Call of Duties, and the perk system itself is actually very similar to Black Ops 2, except the big difference this time around is that the average Call of Duty player is going to be exceptionally more powerful than ever before. This is because of 2 things. The first being that Ghost is basically providing way more perk slots than ever before. You have 8 perk points you can spend. The majority of the perks are going to cost 2 points a pop, which means the standard setup at a minimum will now be 4 perks as opposed to 3 in every COD previously. However, that's assuming you're not using any 1-point perks, and keep in mind, the 1-point perks are still pretty good. Things like Lightweight or Quick Draw or that new perk Takedown that removes the skull over your victim's body that would otherwise alert his teammates to your presence. So, you could put on some of those 1-point perks and end up at like 5 or 6 perks, and on top of that, you can exchange your secondary tactical and or lethal grenades each for 1 perk point a pop for 11 perk points total, which could give you 5 2-point perks plus an extra 1-point perk, or you could run all 6 1-point perks plus 3 2-point perks and max out at a whopping 9 fucking perks. Say that 3 times fast. Now, all that by itself isn't too ridiculous. The 1-point perks still allow for more perk power than ever before, but I mean, you could crack out on perks in Black Ops 2 and max out at 5 or 6, and it's basically the same thing now in Ghost, but the key difference is that in Black Ops 2, and this is where shit gets interesting, to run that many perks, you were giving up everything except your primary, which wouldn't have an attachment. In Ghost, your perks budget is now separated from your attachment budget, and this is a pretty big deal. You know, perks and attachments are basically the same thing. It's just extra superpowers you get to have, and proof of that is how COD bounces certain powers in between the 2 categories, like how the stock attachment is back to being the stalker perk in Ghosts. With this in mind, not only will players have more perks on than ever before, but they get to combine that with the new minimum of 3 attachments on their primary. So not only do they get more perk power, but they get way more attachment power as well, and you don't have to sacrifice one for the other. So what this means is the standard player you will fight against in Ghosts is going to have 4 perks, 3 attachments, a lethal and tactical grenade, plus a secondary, which I'm assuming will also have 3 attachments. So the average player you run into Ghosts are going to have much more powerful classes than we've ever seen before, especially when you start looking at the various combinations. Give up that tactical and that secondary, use that 4th attachment perk, you can have 5 perks and 4 attachments with the same budget, use Lightweight and Quick Draw, both 1-point perks, and very useful rushing perks, and you end up with 6 perks and 4 attachments. So whatever they decide to do, they're going to be a lot stronger than they ever were in previous Call of Duties. And I know the way Infinity Ward has explained it is that attachments are restricted to sights and mods and underbarrels. Now, my basic impression is that anything that can be transitioned into perk form will be. The stock attachment, quick draw, extended mags, fast mag, etc., have all been moved back to the perk category. So I think most of the attachments left will mainly be designed towards improving your aim. Things like foregrip and red dot sight, and I think a lot of people's first instinct is to assume that this means the new 3 attachment setup isn't going to be as obnoxious as it would be if it still had all the attachments available in Black Ops 2. However, I respectfully disagree. I do think this new 3 attachments thing might get obnoxious, because what I think people do is automatically think the red dot sight and the foregrip aren't that threatening because it's kind of just a waste of an attachment in most people's opinion. What this really comes down to, though, is empowering newer players. All of this is about catering to noobs. And this is a recurring theme that we've seen with a lot of games nowadays. But Call of Duty, keep in mind, is the mastermind poster child for shortening skill gaps and propping up noobs. What the new Create a Class system basically does is ensure that someone with bad aim has access to all the same abilities as someone with good aim, on top of shortening the aiming skill gap in general. For instance, in Black Ops 2, the better your aim, the more customization options you will have. For a veteran player with strong aim, the red dot sight and the foregrip are generally a waste of attachment slots because to use them you're going to give up particularly useful attachments like extended mag or stock. But if you're a newer player, God forbid a brand new player, it's going to be very difficult to use some of the higher recoil weapons without a grip or a sight. And even the newer players realize they're missing out on attachments when they are forced to rely on foregrip and sights as crutches, so what they'll do instead is gravitate towards lower recoil weapons and stay really far away from the high recoil weapons. Or if they do use higher recoil weapons, they'll feel restricted to aim crutch type attachments. You know, a while back I made a video about how I thought the Scorpion extended mag suppressor was the best gun in Black Ops 2. I put a lot of gameplay up with it, and I think I demonstrated just how deadly that gun can be, but you'll never see anyone use it because it's so high recoil. It's just not an option for newer players or even most intermediate players. So, in previous Call of Duties, if you had good aim, you would have access to more weapons, more attachments, more superpowers. But now, in Ghosts, with 3 attachments, kids will be able to take the highest recoil weapon in the game, put red dot sight, foregrip, and like a long barrel or whatever they have access to onto it and turn it into a motherfucking ACR. And these aren't going to be wasted attachment slots like in Black Ops 2 because all the other potent attachments are now perks, and motherfuckers can have 4 or 5 of those perks, so it has shortened the skill gap in the sense that the advantage of better aiming is greatly reduced. And further in the sense that because most of the attachments are going to be aim crutches, everyone's aiming is going to be significantly better, but this is an advantage that will be unevenly distributed to newer players with weaker aim because there's a ceiling for aiming abilities. When you know how to burst fire, when you're savvy enough to know the max range, your gun will have the advantage, and when you've just had enough practice getting on target, a red dot sight and a foregrip aren't going to do that much for you. Because what it really comes down to is, could I have gotten that kill without a foregrip and a red dot sight? And most of the time the answer is yes. At least for me. But for a newer player, the floor of aiming abilities can sometimes be very low. For instance, if they aren't very skilled with burst firing, a red dot sight and grip will often be the difference between life and death. When kids use SMGs, instead of having to rely on critical thinking to navigate the map so that they engage enemies at shorter distances where the SMG has the advantage, well, in Ghosts, they're going to be able to just run the RDS foregrip and play the SMG like an AR high grip. And granted, you could run SMGs like AR hybrids in Black Ops 2, but again, the key difference would be you were missing out on a bunch of other really cool superpowers, which will no longer be the case. It's a lot like what I was talking about with Halo 4 bullet magnetism. Like, having bullets arc towards your target isn't super helpful if you can hit them in a straight line anyways, but it's a tremendous help to a player who cannot hit targets in a straight line, which is the exact same concept as Ghosts. And, I mean, you know, as far as lowering skill gaps goes, I actually don't mind this as much as what a lot of other games have done, and what Call of Duty has done in the past. Like, at least it's honest, and it's something that we advanced players can be excited about as well. Like, there are going to be a lot more customization options and brand new ways to play, but I do wish Call of Duty would cater to us advanced players for once. Either way, I promise you, I will find the most OP class possible, and I will destroy motherfuckers and secure glory and justice for the Republic on Call of Duty Ghosts. And remember, my knowledge is your knowledge, people, and I will bring about a golden age of prosperity and deliver us to the promised land that is epic Call of Duty massacres on the daily. So stay tuned, people, and hit that thumbs up button and follow me on Twitter. This is Batman, signing out.
You have pleased our generals. Never a doubt, good job. Big win, job done.